follow me? Well, now, here's a gallery full of animals I'm sure you've heard about before. These wonderful giants of the past called the dinosaurs. And yet they've all disappeared. They must have been some of nature's misfits.
When nature screens out the weak, it's called natural selection. When man sifts out the weak, it's called rejection, losing, failing.
The dinosaurs have died out, they're misfits. We don't want to follow their example.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Happiest Smile of the Week competition. And as the name implies, we're out to find the happiest smile. We want to give another big smile towards the judges.
From birth to death, cradle to grave, through all the 7 ages of man, every man, woman and child, each and every day, is being sized up, marked, judged, adjudicated and pronounced upon. He's forever up before boards, panels, examiners, scrutineers, inquisitors, inspectors, loved ones, friends and colleagues, and pronounced fit or unfit for prizes, trophies, scholarships, medals, cups, jobs for the boys, love, friendship and social acceptance.
Thank you very much, Julie. This is it then, the piece of paper, it's all tatty and torn, but the numbers are all right, that's clear. And I am going to call out the number, and when I do, you must give a round of applause, because it's the number of the winner for this group, number 28.
All eyes turn pleadingly towards someone, some godlike figure with a golden key, to be humoured with the required behaviour.
I thought I was right. You're Donna, and I saw you over that side, Donna, with a little boy. Is he your husband or your boyfriend?
My husband.
Your husband. Can you tell us how long have you been married? How long have you been married?
6 years.
6 years. Oh. I can see you've got a few grey hairs, so that must have been the reason. You've been married 6 years, and I could have sworn you were here on your honeymoon, and you're not. You've been married 6 years. Have you got any children? How many?
4.
4.
Most infants are free from the processes of selection, but some aren't. This first film in the series is about those few, the few for whom selection begins at birth. Before birth even, for many a worried woman has taken the road to the pregnancy testing laboratory after a careless embrace and a bout of morning sickness. And when she finds out, what will she do? The life of a baby is in her hands. She can give birth or abort. Even before its birth, this baby will be judged and pronounced fit or unfit for life itself. Some babies face selection in the first few weeks of life. It's called adoption.
We still haven't got a home for baby Peter. We've tried, but we still haven't been able to find a home for him. As you remember, his mother is an English girl and his father is African. He's not a big baby, he's quite a compact little boy. He's sort of coffee-coloured, big brown eyes, nicely shaped mouth, and he really has got the nicest disposition, as so many of these little Negro boys has.
Adoption societies are clearing houses with immense power. In the hands of these few women lies the future happiness of children who need proxy parents and parents who need proxy children. They grant parenthood or withhold it.
But owing to the recent drop in the number of children coming to us for adoption, we now have to say that we cannot accept any more applications for young babies for the time being.
The would-be parents who apply to adoption societies have a rosy ideal in mind. Most in demand are girls, a few weeks old, and above all, white-skinned. But demand overwhelms supply. So many want babies of a certain sort, and there are so many babies of a certain sort that no one wants. Like John, the wrong colour, the wrong age, and the wrong sex.
There's so many of these little Negro boys waiting for families. At the moment, we just haven't any homes for them.
He's failed the first test because he's the wrong colour.
The age is the problem. The age and the nursery background is the problem, really. So many people, when it comes down to it, are really wanting a baby or a younger child.
He's failed the second test because he's the wrong age.
It was only a little girl that the family felt they could take.
He's failed the third test because he's the wrong sex.
He's got a mild degree of cerebral palsy. It does affect mainly his legs.
Well, do we have anybody at the moment who could take this little boy, take these physical problems as well as the age? I suppose we just have to say that at this moment we don't have a family.
He has failed all the tests not of his making, over which he had no control.
It's important too, isn't it, that they should have support of the wider family circle, including the children.
I think it was your story that...
Yes.
What was it?
Well, a couple quite recently. We were very happy to consider a coloured child, and they brought their little daughter with them, about 8, and she just listened carefully. Didn't say a word, but when she got home, she said, "Daddy, I don't want a brown brother or sister." And when he asked her why, she said, "Well, they're not kind to them at school." This would upset me very much.
A baby has to be pretty. Those male and female genes must pair off fashionably at the point of conception, for this caprice of union uplifts or devastates.
This little boy is going to need parents who will accept the fact that he's not likely to be any more than low average in intelligence.
Now, Sarah Jane, you've got a beautiful hairstyle. Did your mummy ever tell you that?
No, his hair is straight, and his hair is straightish but black. But he is a little part Negro boy.
He's got terrific muscles, and he's showing them, look, and I'm going to feel, oh, it's so strong. I wish I was this strong. Fantastic, he's really got the strongest muscles, he's absolutely solid.
He was a premature baby, and the paediatrician's report said that he probably had spastic cerebral palsy.
Well, of course, we always get winners, but that means we get losers as well, doesn't it? When you get winners, you're always bound to have losers, and losers don't get a prize, but what we do give them is a round of applause, don't we? So let's hear it for the others.
Mrs. Reason, there's a job here for an anti-detergent rash ointment. Now, little Jane, has she got a spot-free bottom at the moment? Because obviously her bottom's going to be in full view in the camera, in the shot. She's okay, is she? You're quite sure? Jolly good. Fine.
All those bonny tots who ogle in mail-order catalogues or munch in television ads have been through a sort of trial at a place like Miss Norrie Carr's child model agency. For the advertisers have discovered that as hidden persuaders, pretty children are second only to nubile girls in bathing suits.
I think no to that one.
Each day, Miss Carr gets a sack full of photos from ambitious mothers. She then noses out that certain something that will melt a mum's heart and open a mum's purse.
I don't think so, I'm afraid.
No hair.
No hair.
Start.
So Miss Carr sifts her pretty mercenaries from legions of willing recruits. It was at this very table that she first spotted the greatest mum softener of them all, Master Joseph Curran, star of the Egg Marketing Board.
Can't make omelette without breaking eggs. Eggs are cheap enough now, so be generous. Myself, I'm using 48. Of course, Aunt Pet doesn't know yet.
When Miss Carr has made her shortlist, she invites mother and offspring for the test proper. Mrs. Usher plus Tracy plus Sharon have driven across from Slough.
I, as a mother, know how it must feel to have a child rejected. So because of this, I try to be as gentle as I possibly can. An extreme reaction is one that we have had several times. I have had mothers here that have immediately said, I consider my child to be much more beautiful than anything you've got on that wall, and immediately start insulting the children whose photographs hang on the wall.
The trial begins. Miss Carr is out to assess the children's temperament and their teeth.
Mrs. Usher, could you take the children's coats off for me, please?
There's a job for Aaron tomorrow after school at Marks and Spencer.
Come over here and say hello. No? Sharon, will you come over and say hello? Oh. Come on, Tracy. Who's that? Tracy, who's this? Who's this? Who is this? Come and say hello to me, please. Sharon, come and say hello to me. Come on. I've got some photographs here of you. All right. Tracy, who's this? Come, let me see. Well, come and show me then. That's right. Now, who's this? Who's this? Whoops. And that's Sharon, is it? That's lovely. Tell me, who's this? Hey, listen. Is this a bunny rabbit? Is it? What's his name? Tracy, can I see your pretty dress? Yes. Let me have a look at your pretty dress instead now. That's sweet, isn't it? That's lovely. Can I see your pretty dress? Yes? That's lovely. Tracy, can I see your teeth, darling? Show me your teeth. No, you're not going to show me your teeth. How about you, Sharon? Do you want to have a look at that too? Yes? And that? That's Sharon, is it? Sharon, darling, listen. Can I see your teeth? Show me your teeth. Well, let me see the doggy's teeth then. Who's this? Who's this? Sit over there with Mummy. All right? That's fine. Now, I want you to take the children's measurements. Take their height without their shoes. Take their other measurements just over their vest and pants. They're self-explanatory, but if you become unstuck on any of them at all, if you're not sure, if there's anything you don't understand, don't hesitate to phone.
Sharon and Tracy were accepted. They are currently appearing in a film entitled Fiesta Kitchen Units.
She sees all these other children on the television and she's quite convinced that her child could do just as well. And I think this is the main mode of its pride.
It's pride in looks, pride in appearance, and pride in achievement. Mother's pride exalts its offspring. And where better to display mother's pride than cutting a dash on the dance floor, a belle of the ball, flounced and sequined. The world of ballroom dancing is a treasury of cups and medals, a sparkling highway inlaid with bronzes, silvers, golds, gold bars, stars and empire awards. In ballroom dancing, you feel the thrill of competition very, very young. And in ballroom dancing, you can become a little adult before you're scarcely a child. It's Judgment Day at the Bateman Dancing School. A dozen fledgling dancers are taking their juvenile cha-cha bronze.
I've got another little girl, Angela, who's 1 now, that I make a point that she should learn dancing at the age of 3, because I think they get far more sort of encouragement when they're sort of young, and they get sort of more marks, sort of thing, and they're going a lot of competitions. There's also more chance of getting boys partners. I think so. I shall definitely begin as soon as she's age 3. She'll begin dancing.
The importance of what it is. She's just going to dance with her teacher, and this is all it is to her, you know.
Do you realise how important it is?
Perhaps, but I'd rather that she acted naturally and just did what she felt she could do.
This first exam is the open sesame to an Aladdin's cave of silvers and golds and parental bonuses.
What's she going to give her if she gets it?
£10.
Just for a pass?
No, it's highly commended.
Well, David dances quite nicely for this grade. He's got a very good sense of rhythm. He's losing marks at the moment because he's dancing on the heels when he comes forward instead of dancing on the ball of the foot, which gives him rather a flat-footed effect. And he, of course, tends to look down at his feet instead of looking up. But he's doing quite nicely. I'll give him a pass. I'll give him 70 marks out of 100.
She has all her exams except her gold cup. That's the cha-cha, bronze, Latin, bronze, silver, gold, 3 gold bars, and her Empire Award and 5 stars.
Yes, James danced very, very well for this grade. His only fault, really, that matters at this stage is his dancing with 2 bent knees.
I have a dog, and my dog sure likes you. You have a dog, and that dog likes me too.
No one actually fails the juvenile bronze cha-cha. It's more a blooding, an initiation into a world of selection, adjudication, competition. A world where tiny tots grow up fast into little women, where the little women fast grow up into competitive little Joneses, keeping up with each other.
Denise, how many medals have you got? I don't know, Julie. Oh, I reckon I've got about 130, something like that. Have you got any cups? No. We've got about 7, you know, News of the World and... Yeah, which ones are the other ones, Julie? Oh, you've got the grips in your hand.
Grits, I'll have them in a minute, all right? Yeah.
Julie Webster, with 130 medals, prepares for her 131st. For another day of judgment is nigh. The dance school's open day dance-off gala prize giving. There are marks to be gained, cups to be won. There are contests to be fought out, rivals to be outfought. 1,000 hearts beat happily.
Thank you.
And so to prize giving, with pinchbeck trophies clasped to swelling bosoms and borne off misty-eyed.
Well done, very nice. There's your prize. And James Porter.
So young, but already anxious parents and teachers are talent spotting through their 6-year-olds with just as much ambition as the tiny tappers' mums. For there are 1 or 2 children with exceptional gifts, exotic blooms who need hothouse treatment. These children must be snapped up at 6 or 7.
You can't do this at a later stage. If you start at 14 or 15, it's too late. The fingers won't move as you want them to. The position of the arm won't just stay where you want it to stay. And then there are sort of group patterns that you build in, the coordination of fingers, both for violin, piano. In the case of wind players, the building of the right facial muscles must be done at the right age. Even the teeth have to have the right sort of set, and this depends on them learning at the right age.
Would you know if your 6-year-old had the seeds of genius? If your infant was prodigious? There is a way of testing. It doesn't tell you that your child is an infant prodigy. It tells you that he might be, that he's got the ear, the eye, the nose for music. These are musical IQ tests devised by Arnold Bentley of Reading University. Test number 1. Is the second note higher than the first, or lower, or the same?
1. 2.
'As the test advances, it gets more difficult.
16. 17. 18. 19.
'There are 4 tests. They probe a child's sense of pitch, rhythm, his musical memory, and his ability to analyze chords. Dr. Bentley worked out the musical intelligence quotient of this class of 25. The 2 on the extreme right were musically subnormal. The next row below average, the next average. The longest row was above average. The 3 second from the left were outstanding, but the boy on the left, whose gifts were not noticed in class, was infant prodigy standard, in a class on his own with a musical IQ of 170. He's 1 in 1,500. In most schools, music is about as important as woodwork. But Chetham's Hospital School in Manchester has just decided to award all its places free solely on musical ability. Competition is fierce and nationwide. For a place at Chetham's is a passport to the conservatoire and concert platform. The judges here are really in the business of spotting infant prodigies.
How long have you been playing the trumpet?
About 5 months.
5 months. And do you learn with a private teacher or in a group?
In a group.
And how many are in the group that you're learning with?
5.
5. 5 months, 5 in a group. When do you do your practice?
Every Thursday at 12 o'clock.
Do you practice at home?
Yes.
When?
In the front room.
When?
At night.
How long do you practice for?
An hour.
Will you invent a trumpet call, a trumpet fanfare to herald in an important person? Think of somebody important, and you're going to say, perhaps boxers going into a ring, and somebody says, on my right, so-and-so, on my left, so-and-so, and then you produce a fanfare because they're just stepping in the ring. Can you invent one on that chord of D?
Salford children are coming to be tested and probed and accepted or rejected. Theirs is not an 11+, they're too old as 11. Theirs is the 7+. Some children are very, very young when they meet their judges. This little girl is being discovered, though she doesn't know it, and she's only 7. The other 7-year-olds are for the moment free, but very soon their trials will crowd in. The 11+, streaming, IQ tests, teacher assessments, O&A levels, diplomas, certificates, degrees, boards, interviews, and then marriage, career, retirement. Their trials are coming. Like everyone else, they too will come under the scrutiny of the judges, as the rest of this series will show.
During Casino, the decision to bomb the monastery. Now, that's always been a controversial and much debated decision.
Well, it was. See, and it was, I suppose, the most difficult decision that Alexander was ever faced with during the whole of his military career. But his view was, and I would support it, that the troops who were being asked to attack and capture a casino, the Monte Casino, thought and believed that the Germans were using the monastery for purposes of defense. And in any case, whether they were actually occupying it or not, the surrounds of the monastery gave the most marvelous observation over the whole of the battlefield. And for that reason, it was a morale and encouragement factor that was that had to be taken into account. And in that, I think he was right. In the event, it wasn't a success because it gave the Germans on Monte Cassino a much better facility for developing their defensive system than even if they'd occupied the monastery. So it was counterproductive. But that we didn't realize at the time, nor did anybody else for that matter.
How about the political dimension of the war? Churchill's often criticized for interfering too directly in the conduct of military operations. How did things look from your end of the tunnel?
Well, I don't think he did. Frequent signals that came in from him suggesting this and that and the other, and this sort of thing. I mean, when at the Anzio landing, for example, which bogged down with a very limited beachhead, and Alex got a signal from the old man saying, what happened? I expected a dash into the mountains to cut off the enemy's retreat, and what do I find? Nothing but a whale wallowing on the beach. Well, how do you reply to that? And that sort of thing. Oh, I expected a scythe-like movement cutting off the enemy's retreat. How do you use a scythe in the mountains? He got an extremely fertile brain, and he would have an idea in the early hours of the morning or in the middle of the night or whenever, and then he would come to the chiefs of staffs and say, well, gentlemen, I think, what about this or that or the other? What he wanted to hear was that he'd get it argued out and discussed and thrashed out whether it was a good idea or not.
Harding's time as Chief of Staff to Alexander gave him useful experience of the political as well as the military dimension, and his command of 13th Corps in Italy in the closing months of the war crowned a successful wartime career. He was a natural choice for senior appointments in the post-war army. After 2 years in Trieste, he took over Southern Command in Britain, then became Commander-in-Chief, first of Far East Land Forces during the troubled years of Malaya and Korea, and then of the British Army of the Rhine. In 1952, he became professional head of the British Army.
This is Movie Time. Lionel Gamlin reporting. A very thorough tour of inspection has just been made by Field Marshal Slim's successor as Chief of the Imperial General Staff, General Sir John Harding. Come along, my lad. The CIGS wants a word with you. The General, in fact, had a talk with many of the Royal Engineers and other troops training at Aldershot during his visit. He also went to Warminster and inspected the 1st Battalion of Gloucestershire Regiment at Nuke Camp. The Gloucesters, who won undying fame through their heroism in Korea, were extremely smart on parade.
These are critical days in Cyprus and in Nicosia, the capital.
In 1955, Harding was offered the governorship of Cyprus. The Prime Minister, Anthony Eden, warned him that there was nothing to be gained, and possibly something to be lost, in taking on the job, and only his strong sense of duty made him accept it. Cyprus, a British colony, had become a battleground between the Turkish community, under its leader the Mufti, and the Greek community under the redoubtable Archbishop Makarios.
Archbishop Makarios figures more prominently in the news. Conducting services in village churches, he preaches sermons that might...
Makarios and his supporters sought Enosis, union with Greece, and in March 1955, the underground movement AOKA, led by General Grivas, launched its campaign against the British.
It's certainly an explosive situation. But now Field Marshal Sir John Harding has arrived in Nicosia to restore order and to prepare the way for constitutional reforms. After inspecting the RAF Guard of Honour at the airfield, Sir John at once proceeded to Government House. Here he was sworn in by the Chief Justice with all due ceremony. The new governor and commander-in-chief of Cyprus took the oath and signed the documents. All Britain hopes he will meet with complete success in his very difficult task.
Your adversary in Cyprus, General Grievous, described your appointment as governor and commander-in-chief as something of a compliment to him. What did you make of it?
Well, I thought it was going to be a difficult and anxious time. I had some experience of dealing with terrorist organizations, both in Malaya and in Kenya. And I didn't rate it very easily. I tried to find out as much as I could about Grievous and the terrorist organization, but there was really no information at all. When I arrived there, I found the police force was demoralized. There was no intelligence of any kind, and so you had to start from scratch.
What did you do?
Well, first of all, we started to try and get the police onto a firmer footing with the proper CID and intelligence organization, and that was one thing. The other thing was how to get information about the terrorist organization, and to do that, I decided that it was necessary to spread a network of patrols and listening posts over the whole island.
Grievous argues that by flooding the country with troops, you actually succeeded in offering him more targets and paradoxically made his job easier.
Well, I don't think that's true. I wouldn't agree with that. Grievous was a very high-grade guerrilla leader, and he'd been in charge of one of the extreme right-wing groups in Greece during the Greek Civil War between the right wing and the communists, and he was a particularly ruthless and expert guerrilla leader. And he had a small number of mountain gangs, we called them, who, well, I suppose they were dedicated anarchists. They believed that they were fighting for there's a lot of nonsense talked about it now, you know. Grievous wasn't fighting for freedom, he was fighting for anarchists. That was his objective. That's the union of the island of Cyprus, the kingdom of Greece. That was his objective. There's a lot of nonsense talked about it nowadays.
It's often easy to be wise with the benefit of hindsight, but in retrospect, do you think you might have played Cyprus any differently? No,
I don't think so. I think, to start with, we had to convince the terrorists that they couldn't secure their political objective by violence, by intimidation, and terrorism. And that's what we set out to do. I mean, the real problem was the position of the Archbishop and the Church.
Let's talk more specifically about the position of the Archbishop. What did you make of him?
To start with, I found it very difficult to understand his position. As you know, I come from a long line of West Country yeoman farmers who don't hand over, we don't hand over our consciences to anybody. And to find a situation where the priests, and the Archbishop in particular, had complete control over the minds as well as the bodies of all the members of the Greek Orthodox Church in Cyprus was difficult for me to understand. But then if you think about the history of the whole thing and realize that over the past 500 years or more, the Greek Orthodox Church has been the bastion of Christian civilization against Muslim expansionism, particularly in Asia Minor and the Balkans, well, then you begin, and what they didn't learn about political intrigue during those 500 years wasn't worth knowing, well, then you begin to understand attitude and reasoning and why they were doing what they did do. But it's difficult to understand. I think that's a thing which a great many people in this country have never understood.
Why did you report the Archbishop to the Seychelles?
Well, it became clear that Macarius was the political head to whom Grivas was responsible, and that they were both associated together in the same terms as a war cabinet would be with a commander-in-chief in the field in the prosecution of terrorism as a means of securing innocence. And then I came to the conclusion that the only thing to do now is to concentrate on putting Ioka out of business. In other words, inflicting such a defeat on them so that they were no longer an effective guerrilla force. And to do that, it was necessary to get their political leadership out of the way. I could, under the emergency powers, I could have interned Makarios in Cyprus. But that would have made him the focus for terrorist action, attempts to release him, and all the rest of it. So I came to the conclusion that the only thing to do was to deport him. Archbishops in Cyprus had been deported years before, so I thought that was the only thing to do. And so I recommended to Her Majesty's government that this should be done, and they agreed, and that was done.
In his biography of you, Michael Carver calls the Cyprus episode Cyprus Victory. Do you look back upon it now as a success?
It was a success insofar as it put an end to terrorism and paved the way for a political solution. As the situation is up today, no, I don't think it was a success because the island is divided and there doesn't seem to be much chance of reaching agreement between the Turks and the Greeks. But I think this is, the reason for this is that both Greeks in particular wanted to have it all their own way, and they weren't prepared to compromise on an agreement with the Turks. No, it's very sad. The present situation is very sad and tragic. But at least there's no fighting, and there's no terrorism.
The Hardings were obvious targets for Ioka assassination attempts. There was a notable one at Government House itself.
What happened was that we had a Greek staff at Government House, and there was one young one who hadn't been there very long, and I think he was put under pressure by Ioka and intimidated and told that his family would, whatever it was, suffer or be persecuted if he didn't do this, and they persuaded him to put a bomb between the mattresses in my bed. And I slept on it all night, so I haven't got any royal blood in me. And I didn't feel it. And in the morning, I went off early in the morning, and my older servant, Dan, a little Cockney chap, she had a room adjoining our bedroom. He used to refer to me as Aichi, and he used to put his head through the door and said, "My lady, there's a bomb in Aichi's bed." She said, "Don't be silly, Corporal Wells. Well, there's no time. I'm too busy to have practical jokes." She said, "But there is, my lady. You come and have a look." Which she did, and saw this package in the bed. And then the commander of the guard was sent for, and he took it out and put it outside, and it went off, exploded and blew all the windows in that side of the house in about a few minutes after he'd put it in a weapon pit. There were various other attempts. They tried to, one time they tried to send poisoned milk into Government House. Another time they put a bomb underneath the steps of the military hospital when I was on a visit there. And then there was the Greek consulate was bang opposite the road from the Anglican church, where I used to go from time to time. And there's one story, I don't know, I think it might have been true, that they'd, Grievous had arranged for a sniper to be put in the windows of the Greek consulate to take me off as I walked up to church, but that never came to anything. Well, there are occupational hazards.
Harding left Cyprus in 1957, and his service there was acknowledged by his peerage in the 1958 New Year's Honours. He was already colonel of a number of regiments, the Somerset Light Infantry amongst them. His colonelcy of the Life Guards brought with it the appointment of Gold Stick to the Queen, an honour proudly accepted by the former post office clerk turned lifetime soldier.
What do you think is the British Army's greatest strength?
Well, I think the regimental system is a great source of strength, and of course tradition is a tremendous source of strength. I mean, tradition is not something that you rest on your laurels about, but it's something, it's an encouragement and an incentive for the future to enhance the tradition of your regiment, to make sure it's properly upheld, and to let people know about it and what it means. It's a great factor in morale and courage and endurance, in my opinion. The other thing is the actual individual character of British soldiers. I mean, they vary. I suppose the Highlander and the Geordie, the West Countryman, just as different as the Gurkha and the Punjabi Muslim. But they all belong. It's a question of belonging to something. You belong to your regiment, you belong to the British Army. And they are tremendously good comrades. I still have touch in contact with my platoon sergeant of the First World War, a chap called Joe Guthrie. He's in his late 90s now. We exchange Christmas cards. He can't see to read all right, but his granddaughter's very good. And she rang me up the other day and said, would I have a talk with her grandfather? And I said, yes, of course, I'm delighted. So we exchanged views and news. And he's just the same as he's always been. And they are friends, you see. They're not only comrades in arms, but they're friends. And once they're your friends for life.
Field Marshal, as you look back at this full and active life, is there anything that you regret not having done? If you had your time again, would you take a different route?
I took the route I did, I suppose, by accident more than by design. No, I don't think so. I mean, the Army is a wonderfully good life, good, active, outdoor life in good company. You couldn't improve on that. My other activities since I finished soldiering have been both interesting and have taken me around the world. I've been to most parts of the world. I've made a tremendous number of friends. I've met a lot of distinguished people. No, I don't think I regret anything. I mean, some things I reckon I could have done better than I did, but there's no good job in that.
Have you a hero, Field Marshal?
A few years ago, I had a letter from an American university student who wrote and said he'd like to know, would I tell him, what I would like most to have done, going back into history as far as I liked. So I thought for a long time, and then I wrote back and said, if I'd been a sailor, I would like to have served under Nelson at the Battle of the Nile. As a soldier, I would settle for having served with Wellington in the Peninsula. And so Nelson is my military hero. I think because he combined skill and daring to a very, very high degree. He had the complete confidence and trust of his captains, and they all idolized him as well as doing everything he asked of them. And I think as a military commander, he was the most outstanding one in history.
Your whole life has been bound up in the profession of arms. Do you think that profession has a long-term future?
I would think so. Yes, I think so. I think everything is very different from what it was in my young or even my later days. I mean, the introduction of nuclear weapons, I think, has made everything very different. But in the final event, in a conflict, in a human conflict, I think sooner or later it will come down to the man with a rifle in his hand who knows his way about and is determined to win for his faith, his country, his beliefs, or whatever they may be.
You think war will always be with us?
Well, I hope not, but I'm afraid so. I subscribe to a saying which I think belongs to Polybius, the ancient Greek historian, which goes, "War is a fearful thing, but not so fearful that we should submit to anything to avoid it."
Well, Britain's most senior soldier, His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, is Terry Wogan's special guest tomorrow night at 7, with ducks lamed and Dallas reeling before the news. At 9:30, Dependency and Decay on the Africans continent with Ali Mazrui this week, probing the economy. And to close, from Australia, Eureka Stockade, the first of a two-part drama based on the epic story of the 1854 Gold Miners' Rebellion.
I think because the combined skill and daring to a very, very high degree. He had the complete confidence and trust of his captains, and they all idolized him, as well as doing everything he asked of them. And I think as a military commander, he was the most outstanding one in history.
Your whole life has been bound up in the profession of arms. Do you think that profession has a long-term future?
I would think so. Yes, I think so. I think everything is very different from what it was in my young or even my later days. I mean, the introduction of nuclear weapons, I think, has made everything very different. But in the final event, in a conflict, in a human conflict, I think sooner or later it will come down to the man with a rifle in his hand who knows his way about and is determined to win for his faith, his country, his beliefs, or whatever they may be.
You think war will always be with us?
Well, I hope not, but I'm afraid so. I subscribe to a saying which I think belongs to Polybius, the ancient Greek historian, which goes, "War is a fearful thing, but not so fearful that we should submit to anything to avoid it."